Hello, and welcome to our show, For the Love of Animals, the show about your favorite pets. We want you to get paper and pencil today because we're doing a very important topic, disaster planning for your cat or dog. I'm Darleen Pigford.
And I'm Greg Baur, and we have a couple of our little critter friends with us, Wicket, whom many of you have seen before, and also Callie, over in Darlene's lap. And we want to tell the viewers about a couple of upcoming shows. One, we're going to be talking with the Paducah Police Department about how dogs are used in police work, and then our holiday show, which will be on my favorite things, with no apologies to Oprah.
Or Animal Planet.
And we don't apologize to Animal Planet for this either. So, well, Darlene, you've mentioned already what's on tap for today. It sounds like an extremely interesting show. Let me go ahead and introduce our guest.
Okay.
This is Dr. Eugene Ceglinski from here in Paducah, one of our local veterinarians. And
welcome, Gene.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
We're so glad that you're here, Gene. And Darlene gave a little bit of a flavor. Gene has been doing a lot of work in the community with various boards and things like that. So, well, Gene, would you please explain to us just what your responsibilities are at this point and how this is all fitting into the disaster planning?
Well, so much in this community, a lot of us do not realize what is available to help the community in itself. I did not know that these organizations were here. And I was asked, and I felt that I was obligated that I'd like to try to give some input into it. One was the Region 1 Hazmat team, and this is the western 7 counties in Kentucky, who is all volunteers. If they are called out from emergency services for a chemical spill or a atmospheric leak or a train wreck, something like this, they come out and assess the situation and determine what degree of exposure and so forth and how to handle it. The other one is with the Regional Medical Reserve Corps, and once again these are volunteers. This is all associated with the Department of Health and Human Services and the Surgeon General. And they, once again, are all volunteers to help and assist if community care of disasters or, for example, an infectious disease outbreak, then these volunteers come and in an organized fashion help the community.
And you're serving on these boards to help what we would do for disaster for the animals.
Yes, of course, that's my primary goal, is that aspect of it. You obviously you try to help wherever it is needed, but the veterinary care on the local community and the animals there, that's my responsibility.
Wow.
And of course we're talking primarily about, I guess, cats and dogs and birds, our smaller animals. We're not talking about livestock at this point.
That would actually be taken care of a veterinarian more, that he specializes in that. But that too, though, has to be under consideration.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're confining ourselves today to cats and dogs, even though livestock is very important. Gene, why don't you give us an overview of the you've already mentioned a few of all the typical disasters that might happen here in Paducah.
Right.
Paint the unfortunate scenarios for us.
Obviously the thing that has gotten the national attention was Katrina and the type of response that occurred there. Here in western Kentucky, I think we would be more inclined to have tornadoes or an earthquake. But there too, sometimes there's individual family disasters. For example, you could be at work and in the evening a front come in and an ice storm come in and you can't make it home. Or it could be that a propane tanker truck overturned outside your street, and so your street was blocked off. Or potentially a member of your family had to be taken to the hospital with a heart attack and you're going to spend the whole night there. So that in itself affects you and your pet responsibilities if you can't get home to take care of them.
To take care of them.
Right.
Well, and this is a place where obviously neighbors have to be kind of counted upon to help in some of these situations.
That's right. You know, if you have a neighbor who you feel very, very comfortable with, and they vice versa, it's just a good idea if you feel like it is to communicate with them, possibly give them a key to your house, tell them, here I have a medical storage, little medical storage kit that you can make up by these plastic storage boxes from Lowe's or Home Depot, and if your pet is on medication, what does he get? And so they could come and help you. Always one of the most important things as you do on your pets is be sure to have an ID tag on there. And on that tag you have your name, your home phone number, but a lot of times you're not at home. That doesn't do you any good. If you have a cell phone, that is now probably more important than anything, is put your cell phone on there.
Okay.
And a lot of the tags too will have a rabies tag, so there will be a number there where the veterinarian in their computer bank has who the owner is. So that is one of the most important things, is identification.
And hopefully some of your maybe family might be available, and or other relatives and that sort of thing besides your neighbors.
Right.
So, well, not all of us have family in the area.
I know it, but your neighbors are one of the most important.
Yes.
Yeah, so in other words, if we couldn't get home, what you're saying is we should have worked out a plan with our neighbor, and our neighbor actually should know maybe where the favorite hiding places of our animals. For example, I have a cat, Sam, and you're going to find him under the chair in the front living room. Well, if it were an emergency and you didn't have a lot of time, you need to know something like that.
Right.
So we need to think about a plan if we couldn't get home, how we would handle it. So let's go back to these ID tags. I know that you can get them at Walmart and at PetSmart, but Callie has on a little heart which has that information on it. You can't see it. She also has a microchip tag. Right. Tell us about microchipping as an ID.
Well, the microchipping obviously is a small non-reactive chip that's placed underneath the skin, and it can be scanned with a scanner very, very similar to that's in the grocery store, and that number will come up. And most veterinarians, humane societies, animal control individuals will have this scanner, and that number is registered into a national database, and so that can be called, and then the number comes up and they will have the owner's name, a second contact, whether that be your son or daughter or whatever, and then the veterinarian also. So there are 3 different sources of information where the owner can be found.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that we in disaster planning, Greg and I finally decided to do. We did go and have all of our animals microchipped because they are members of the family, and if they were to get lost during any disaster, we'd want to make every effort to make sure that we could find them and get them back home.
Well, and as we're going to point out in a few minutes, there are other ways besides microchipping to that you can use to identify and make known your pets and so on. But well, looks like we need to take a break at this point.
Yeah, let's take
Darleen.
a short break, and we have a happy tale about a nice dog named Sassy. Listen up.
Hi, my name is Sassy, and I am a 12-year-old Pomeranian. 12 years ago, I was housed at Project Hope, and I didn't know what was going to become of me. One day, Bethany came to the shelter to do some volunteer work, and we saw each other. It was love at first sight. I was so excited when Bethany took me home, and I knew our bond was meant to be. I love to play and have a wonderful forever home. Thank you, Bethany.
Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that little happy tale about Sassy, and we thank Bethany for providing that to us. Let's move back to our discussion about the ID tags. And we were just talking about the microchipping. We might finish up with that. There is a fee for microchipping, isn't there, Gene?
There is. The fee, and I can't tell you right offhand how much it is. My guess is, around $20 for that.
That's what we understand.
And it's administered basically in a painless fashion, just with a needle, and so it's quickly done and over with.
Okay. And if we do decide to microchip, we have to go through the paperwork of getting this information in the database. And if we were to move, I guess we need to then update it with a change of address or phone number, right?
Right.
So you really, it's not just, it's something you'd have to keep up with.
Right.
I was thinking though, Gene, suppose a disaster like a tornado was coming and my animals didn't have an ID, and Greg and I were racking our brains. We thought maybe you could take a little luggage tag or the key ID, those little circular discs, and you could put that information on, but you'd have to put tape or something over it because fingernail polish. So you'd have to do it ahead of time, but you could make a temporary ID, but it would wear out over time. But a temporary one would be better than none at all.
Right, exactly. And even though you keep your pets indoors, that does not excuse you from having an ID tag on them.
Right.
Because you just never know if they may get out or whatever. Now, Gene, you have another interesting way of identifying animals. Why don't you tell us about the little ID tags that you have there?
There has, in the past a year or so, there has been a company, this was called vetgate.usa. This was actually started by a classmate of mine at the University of Illinois. And what we do on this is, one of the things that you like to have is carry around in in your pocket or your purse, an information identity card for your pet. And this comes in the same size as a credit card. And what we do is we will take a picture of your pet when they come in for their annual vaccinations and that. It has a picture of your pet. It has when the vaccinations were given, the name of the pet, and then also if there's any allergies, what medication it would be on. And so if there was a disaster, you have that right with you at that time, whether you have your ID tag on or not. And so I think that's really been a really helpful thing to have.
Right.
And I'll give that website for you again. The website, in order to get this emergency pet ID, is vetgateusa.com.
Okay.
And it's a good site. All you have to do is put in your zip code and it tells you the participating veterinarian. So we don't have one, but we'll have one probably by within a month for each of our animals. So Gene, thank you so much. I didn't know anything about an emergency pet ID card. So this was good information for me.
Well, it's a lot of fun trying to get the animals to smile into the camera.
When you take their picture.
Right.
Of course, we've talked now about the pet IDs. What are the other kinds of things that we can do to be prepared in our home with our pets for whatever disaster may occur?
Well, have everything in one central location, whether you put it in a duffel bag, whether you put it in one of these plastic containers. But for your cats, have a litter box, have litter in there, have food and water bowls, have canned food. Now, when you got canned food in there, you also get a manual can opener. Put that in there, see, and water. Then you want to refreshen that about every 2 months. One of the things that's very interesting is that a healthy dog or cat will drink a quart of water a day. A 60-pound dog would drink 4 gallons of water a week. And so we know that if you have to evacuate, one of the most important things is take your animal with you. If your animal stays at the house, obviously, and you're gone, well then they can become so scared, they can hurt themselves, they can jump through the windows. They even will go through a post-traumatic stress situation and not be the same afterwards. And if you, it's just been known, and I want to tell it like it is, if you leave and you tie your animal up outside on a leash or a chain, he's going to die.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Whether it's from a predator, coyotes coming and getting him, or from the disaster itself, or from starvation, or whatever it is. But that is obviously the least that you desire, what you want to do.
Right.
And I think one of the most important thing is to have pet carriers, because
Right.
if you're going to go to another place and have to transport that animal, and the animal might be upset, it needs to be in its familiar pet carrier. So if I don't have pet carriers, I need to get some. Or Gene, wouldn't you say I could make some out of a box with some duct tape and put some holes in the box?
Sure you can, sure.
Right.
You know, the things I've read is try to have a carrier for each animal. Even though they've lived together and so forth,
That's
if you
right.
put two together in one, the situation at that time can lead to so much stress that obviously they can fight and so forth just from being so stressed out.
Let's say that we do have to evacuate and I have multiple animals, they're in carriers in my car. Where do I go?
Well, hopefully, depends obviously how far you have to go. You know, not all motels and hotels are pet friendly. One should call and find out which hotels would accept pets. If one has to actually go to a national-wide shelter, for example, like the American Red Cross, to say there, a lot of these will not accept them, and this is because number one, they are full. They have their primary purpose is to take care of people, and so they have to deal with the animals being there, with all of the displaced individuals, sanitation, that the animals would not injure the people that are there. And so it's no fault of theirs, but it's their primary purpose is to take care of people. And so, you know, if you're prepared, you're going to leave early. Find out, or find out what motels was acceptable, or if you're going to a relative or so forth. But the primary thing is, don't wait until you're forced to evacuate. Now, if you are forced to evacuate and you have to leave your pet in the house, then leave some type of notice on paper or whatever outside your doors, so that when rescuers come to the house and see if anyone's there, they are aware that animals, your pets, are in the house. And what basically say, well, I've got 2 little dogs and 1 little cat. So they know where they're at, what to expect, and so forth. And so that's very courteous and helpful to them also.
Excellent idea. Well, Greg, why don't we take a short break and give our viewers our website of where they can view this program, and that is at paducah2.org/Greg
/video clips with no space between the 2 words /animals. And you will always see 4 shows up there at one time. Whenever we tape a new show, the show that's been there the longest jumps off. So you can tell your family about a show that you're particularly interested in. You do have to have high-speed internet, but that's the only thing that needs to be done there. So here's the website again for you to write down. Welcome back. We're discussing with Dr. Eugene Ceglinski, our guest today, the situation of disaster planning for your pets. And of course, you know, you hear a lot of talk about for humans, but we're kind of looking at, okay, you can't neglect your pets, so we need to take care of some things like that. And just before the break, Gene, you mentioned trying to find a motel that is pet friendly. There is a website for that you can find for your local area, www.petfriendly.com, and it will give you a list of your local motels. In fact, I guess almost anywhere where you can take a pet and not be turned away because you happen to have an animal with you.
There are certain states, Greg, I believe it's Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. If there is a disaster, all hotels and motels will accept pets in those states.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I can't say that about the surroundings. So, Gene, speaking of, part of your plan is to know when we evacuate where we're going to take our animals, be it a neighbor or friend, family, or if we have to go to a motel. What else would you recommend be in our plan ahead of time about managing our animals?
Well, if we have multiple pets in the house,
okay,
then the wife and the husband, they ought to decide the wife's going to take Fluffy and the husband's going to take little Bobby. I mean, that's already decided, instead of helter-skelter, who's going to catch who's going to put it in this crate, and who's going to take off with it. And then if they, for some reason, they get separated in traffic or wherever their original destination is, they should have where they would had previously agreed to, let's try to meet here. So I think that too is helpful. Of course, you got kids, so am I going to take my 2 little girls and my 1 little son? You know, those things. But yet, when danger is coming so quickly, a lot of these things, they're difficult to make those decisions, you know.
Yes, it is. And you know, if you were to have a fire in your home and you get separated, you know, where are you and your pets going to meet in the neighborhood? If you're not there, then where do you go? And then what telephone numbers, you know? Believe it or not, Greg and I we've just made our plans, and we'll meet at a neighbor's house, and if that's not feasible, we'll be at Hannon Plaza. So that's where we can find it.
Well,
sitting out there with all our animals.
Well, and the viewers have to understand that we have 10 animals, so and there's just 2 of us. The thing I was going to mention, though, is that if you have youngsters that are a little older, they can also be responsible for a pet. And when you have multiple pets, this helps out, and if you share the load among the family, then everything will probably turn out much, much better.
Yeah, if I might make one comment, and this is that people, they don't realize the psychological stress on animals like this. Their daily routine is turned topsy-turvy. And so, one, I want the family to take precautions in dealing and handling of their pets, because what that pet is accustomed to now, if he is extremely scared and so forth, don't get yourself hurt, or don't assume that your pet won't bite you, because things are just totally abnormal for that particular individual. So be aware of that.
I think that's an excellent point. And you just assume that your animals are not going to behave like they do on a daily basis around you.
That's right.
So you need to be prepared for something abnormal, some kind of behavior with the pets.
That's why in the pet carrier, you might line it with newspaper, but you might also put a towel or a t-shirt that has your scent on it. So that would be at least a little bit of comforting as they are in those pet carriers.
Even a toy.
Even their favorite toy, right.
Something like that.
Right. And you know, you don't want to have to find the favorite toy underneath the bed to put in the pet carrier. But Gene, that's an excellent point, that we have to allow for the changes in our animals when there are thunderstorms or floods or any kind of disaster, and they're going to pick that up just from our behavior also.
Yeah, our behavior is going to change also.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we just can't overemphasize at this point the necessity of having some kind of plan
Right.
For you and your family that has to include your pets along with the members of your family. Most people don't want to do it. They don't even want to think about it.
No, we don't.
But some pre-planning can just save you lots of grief and heartache a little bit later.
Which brings up, Gene, how do we handle the situation where our pets are on medication?
You know, I know, and all you can do is do the best you can. Obviously, some medications need to be given on a very regular scheduled basis. Diabetes, some animals are given insulin once a day, some twice a day, and this has to be refrigerated. Or otherwise it'll lose its potency. Then do they eat? Do they not eat? And that makes a difference on their insulin dosing. Heart patients are on their heart medication, and some of them are on Lasix. You know, but one of the things you find is this, and I guess it's the Lord that takes care of it, but you know, you can miss 1 or 2 doses of medicine without having a disastrous outcome. And it's the long-term repetitive missing the medicine that leads into the consequences. So, you know, if your dog misses the medicine tomorrow, if you can catch it up the next day, you're probably going to be okay. He may not feel as well, but you're going to be okay. You know, you got to take care of the most urgent things, and that's get him with you. And then once things settle down, and then you can go ahead and continue on with your daily medical routine.
Now that's some excellent advice. So what we need to know is to be aware and be able to know, have a record of what medicine our animals are on. You know, sometimes I've gotten something from the vet and I didn't pay attention to its name. You know, so we really need to know what medications our animals are on and what the dosages are. And, you know, it'd be a good idea, I think, Gene, to have our vet's phone number maybe on the pet carrier. Because in case, you know, we had to call the vet, hopefully the vet's office is still standing and all, but be able to contact our vet, in, you know, after the emergency has passed.
Well, you know, a phone call relieves a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
You may not need to bring it in, but to discuss something and say, hey, calm down, everything's going to be okay, I want you to do this, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah, and you've done that for us many a time. Well, Gene, in our last minute, what final thought or message or key point would you like to leave our viewers about disaster planning?
It's the planning. It's being prepared. That's it. It's for our family, being prepared. It doesn't take much. Some food, some water. If you've got enough food and water to last 5 days for your pet, 5 days, you are adequately doing the job. And it's communication, whether that be with your neighbor or someone in your family like that, and communication with the family itself. What are we going to do? Where are we going to go? That is the all-important thing.
What an excellent summary.
Well, I think that Gene, you've given us so much valuable information today, and we hope that our viewers will pay attention to the things that you have said. And we'd like to thank you very much for sharing time with us today. And
thank you so much, Gene, and thank you for serving on these boards, which are doing planning for our area.
And we just hope we never have to execute these plans.
Absolutely.
But we do need to address them.
So in closing,
I'm Greg.
I'm Darlene.
And we want to remind our viewers, as usual, give your pet a little extra love today and every day.
Start that disaster plan.
See you next time.
Bye.